things possible for authors when it comes to your message, your book, and what to do with your book after it's been published. And I'm really, really excited for today's conversation because we're talking about, of course, one of our favorite topics at the Authors Leverage, which is course creation. And I have a fellow course creator on the podcast with me today. And this is probably a first, I would say, like having someone else on who's also in the course creation world. But today we're talking about the do's and the don'ts in this process. So I'm excited to learn myself and to share some insights in the conversation. So I want to introduce you to Jasmine Jonte. She helps experts brain dump their information, their expertise into world-class programs. And she has done for you, done with you course creation services. And she's helped so many people in doing what she's doing. And I'm so excited. She's coupled her teaching experience, which I was a teacher as well. She coupled that with her business savvy and management skills. So that way she will do all the heavy lifting while building or upgrading your existing programs. So let me bring Jasmine on. Jasmine, thank you so much for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes, we are talking course creation today. So you're a fellow teacher. Tell me a little bit about that experience and how you've ended up into this space, this world.
Yeah, so I got my first teaching job right out of college in Detroit, Michigan. And I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now that it was actually the lowest performing school in the country at the time. Yeah, it was, and it was a wild experience.
Whoa.
I mean, I love my kids. I love my students. I loved like the act of imparting knowledge, right? I loved how much teachers had to learn in order to then teach. Like I loved
Yes.
that. And at the end of 4 years, I was burnt out. Couldn't do it
Mm,
anymore.
mm.
I was like not being of service to the kids anymore because I didn't have my cup filled and was like, okay, let's try something different. So I got into the
Yeah.
coaching consulting space, did my own programs, got people incredible results, but nothing would scale. And I was like, all right, like let's figure this out. And eventually I realized the part that I loved the most, which was building the programs, other people actually struggle with. And it was never a struggle for me, so I didn't realize how it would be a struggle for others. And once I did, I just went all in on
Mm.
helping other people create world-class transformation for their students and clients. And now that's all I do. It's amazing. I love
I
it.
love it. I love it. And what age range were you in teaching? Is
I
that
taught
elementary?
K1.
K1. Wow. Okay. So the little bitty ones. I had the bigger ones that were like taller than me and, you know, just skip
Uh-huh.
school and stuff like that. So that was my experience. But
Yeah.
I love that in bringing, this into course creation, just how well it translates in some respects. So in your process of building courses, how does your teaching experience influence that?
Oh gosh, it's like everything, right? I mean, in the classroom they talk about classroom management. So being able to like manage a lot of different little humans, or at least for me, they were little humans at one time, and meeting and knowing that when you're teaching something, you're teaching it to little individuals who all have different levels of learning, who all have
Yeah.
different strengths, who all have different weaknesses, and being able to convey it so that everyone gets what they need and no one gets bored along the way. And like that is essentially what any kind of DIY training is
Hmm.
like you have to know where different people are coming in, at what levels of the journey they're at, and then creating resources and training that meets all of them where they're at. So I feel like that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Absolutely. And for me, I remember in the first day of school, usually it's when I always made the goal to make sure I knew everyone's name. So it was like 90 kids' names that I was making sure that I knew and I could call their name back by the end of that day. And and then starting to get to know them. So that way, as we would go about the school year, I was able to just have that information, that knowledge. So that way you can create an experience for them in that way. So yeah, I love that. And I know that like you said, you started off with creating courses and getting into that world then, and then now you're doing it on a larger scale. Like, what are some of the biggest differences that's changed for you in how you approach course creation from the way you used to do it before, perhaps, and when you got started to the way you're doing it now? What are some of the biggest changes?
I think when I when I did it for myself, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really have a process. I just kind of did it because once you, what's the quote, like 10,000 hours or something, and you're an expert at something. Well,
Yeah.
like I had taught so much, right? I had taught, I mean, in the summer, like I just taught for years. And then even in college, I was teaching kids while I was in college, like after school music, stuff like that. So I taught so much, I got to this point, I was like, I don't know, I just know how to teach. I just know how to do it. It's kind of like
Mhm.
unconscious competence, which I find a lot of our experts, that's why they come to us, is because they're so unconsciously competent. They can't figure out, you know, what's important, what's not important, how to scale back what they know, what's the right order and syntax to teach. They can't figure all this out because they just know it so well already.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so different now, is like, because I'm not teaching my own material, I really have to have a process to like take them through to map it out in the right way. So I'd say that's yeah, one huge differentiator.
Yeah, that is huge, and it's interesting too. I mean, now just to have that support when it comes to nailing down your content and how you deliver it, it's so important. Because when I think about it, in our case, working with authors, usually the book that is written, they didn't fully 100% write that. Someone else wrote it at the end of the day, and they had the right team to come in place to support them. And so, you and I are both in that seat of helping to do a lot of that work for them, whether done for you, done with you. And I think that's a big change as well. You don't have to do a lot of these things your own anymore. You can really have the support to get it done too, which is amazing and saves a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and ends up with a better product
Yeah,
and more
100%.
referrals and more repurchases and less refunds. Like, you know, for
Yes,
real, makes
yes,
a
it's
huge
huge.
difference.
Where do you usually start in the process? I know that there's so many ways that courses are developed today. For you in particular, where is important for you to start in the process with your customers?
I just love to hear their vision for the
Mhm.
program. Like, what's the vibe you're trying to create?
Mhm.
You know, how do you want them to feel at the end of the day, right? So
Mhm.
you guys do all this amazing production, so you know what goes into like being a
Yes.
creative director when it comes to video. And I think of myself like that creative director, but for the content that goes inside of the program, right? Like when they're hit with a worksheet, when they're hit with a visual, when they're hit with just opening that portal for the first time, like what's the feeling we want them to feel? So I love to start there, and then we kind of back into the nitty gritty. So we start really broad, and then we funnel down into, okay, well, what are the kind of next layers? Like, what's the framework? You know, what's the unique method that you're going to take someone through beginning to end on this transformation? And then it goes down into, okay, now what's the course outline, right? What are the modules? What are the lessons inside of those modules? Down into, okay, what is the action step inside of this one lesson? You know, where are we going to soft upsell into the next ascension, the next part of the ascension model? Like, where are we going to gamify things? So it starts really broad. What's the vibe? And then
Uh-huh.
gets really, really nitty gritty.
I love that. We think very, very alike. We're trying to figure out what is the vision. How do we want this to actually feel and look for not only the author who's going to be creating, what's their experience like, but of course for the learner. I think that is so important to really consider that experience for them both. In your world, what are you seeing as some of the biggest mistakes that people are making when they approach course creation?
The first one is thankfully starting to go by the wayside, but it's like the hour-long videos, you know?
Yeah.
Like like anything created, I want to say like before 2020, like hour-long videos were okay and normal and like whatever, right? And now in the world of TikTok, we know things have to be shorter and shorter and shorter. It's not about how much, it's how much you can say in the smallest, most condensed, succinct
Mhm.
way possible.
Yes. Yes.
So that's numero uno, is like, do away with the 1 hour program and let's chop this into, I always say like 5 to 15 minutes. Is
Yeah, we're
that
doing
your
some at like
range?
2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if we can, we will. It depends on the project.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. But the shorter the better. It's really the question of how do we convey this in the most time efficient way possible, and put emphasis on the action that needs to be happening at that point too, because the information is just the information, and then there's actually applying that information and then looking back at what you did with that information. Like that definitely has to be a part of that process for sure. Is there anything else for you that are big mistakes that you're noticing?
I think some people are not thinking about support,
Mm-hmm.
meaning like I just feel like there's this Goldilocks level of support that we want every program to get to. So is that a Facebook group? Is that group coaching calls? Is that one-on-one support? Is it having coaches on your team? Is it right? People kind of, and this is more for people if you've been around for a while, like if you've had a program,
Mm-hmm.
if you've started a program a year to 2 years ago, just I feel like things are changing and evolving really quickly. And so really honing in on like what is the perfect amount of support for your students and making sure you're owning that. Like similarly, in that similar vein, live events are a huge support for people, and they're coming back with a vengeance. Everybody wants to be at live events right now. And so it's like, okay, well, have you considered that maybe instead of the bi-weekly coaching calls, maybe that's what people want? They just want one live event a year.
Yes, that's true.
So like auditing that almost.
Yeah, seeing what the learners want to experience in that, and testing it out too. I think some things you don't know until you actually test it out, which is also a big part of course creation too, is actually finding a way to test it out if you haven't already. Some of our authors and clients that we work with have already tested this. They've been teaching it. They've been, really immersed in that, and now they're wanting to have something more official in place. And so it's just interesting the different stages that that course creators are coming into this, and it makes me think also about readiness and what qualifies as being ready for this or not. So, what have you found to be really good indicators that this is the right time to do this? This is an optimal time, whether it's, yeah, like I'm just curious about that from your perspective. When is a good time to approach that?
Yeah. I always say you want to have worked with people one-on-one before
Yes.
you build a program. Like it is, and there are some exceptions, but in general, it is so challenging to build a product if you haven't walked people through that journey
Mm-hmm.
enough individually.
Mm-hmm.
So that's numero uno. Now, there are some exceptions to that rule.
Yeah.
There are some people who are just experts in their field, and it just wouldn't make sense for them to work with other people one-on-one from like a financial standpoint, from a time standpoint. Like it just literally wouldn't make any sense, in which case it's like, okay, well, go talk to some other people who teach what you teach, who have done it one-on-one,
Yeah.
like find a way to fill the gap.
Yes.
So I think that's the number one indicator for me. What's your number one green flag? Like, okay, you're ready, let's go.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Have you been teaching this? Is this something that you actually have active results about? In terms of people getting results on your framework. So I that's one of the things that we definitely look for is just who and how have you influenced with this content already? Because the last thing you want to do is make such an intense effort of course creation, because it's not a lot of it is not
for the faint of heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. There are a lot of pieces involved, and you just don't want to go down that path prematurely. So that's a green flag for me for sure. Is just where has this been taught already, and what are the results thus far? Then let's go forward and build on that. Absolutely. And so what's interesting too now, you mentioned live events is really big right now. Community is also really big right now. I think it almost feels like in some programs, not all, that community aspect is just as important as the course itself. What do you think?
I have bought programs that I don't need the training for just to be with the people personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I know other people are doing it.
Yeah.
I think that, they come for the training, they come to get the results, but they stay
Yes.
for the community.
Yeah.
So if you have any kind of like back end offer or membership program or continuity piece, like the membership and how well you do the membership with the initial product is gonna that'll completely indicate how the next offer in this week goes.
100%. Because what I love too about courses is that it's fitting into their business ecosystem. And for some, it could be that middle of the journey before getting to one-to-one or before getting to some of these other services that someone might offer or experiences. And I love how it really courses are a problem solver and an opportunity creator for how you can, like you said, like create really nice soft upsells within the build of it. So that way, as they are maybe going through that particular lesson and they realize, wow, this is another opportunity for me, something I want to delve into later. It's just, it works so perfectly for that as it relates to a business ecosystem. So how are you seeing that as well? Is it, because you mentioned upsells, what other kind of things are good to emphasize in a course that will help to build and connect to other pieces of your business?
I think it's about letting them know, like, to me, it's all the frame, right? It's like the frame of, I got you, and you're gonna get this result. And I'm already celebrating the fact that you're getting this result. And here's the thing, you're gonna hit this challenge in the future, and I got you there too. Like, I got you now, I got you then, don't even worry about it. Like, you're gonna get these results, we're getting to the moon, let's go. Like, that's what the frame around the soft upsells. So it's very much like at a key moment when they're already thinking, oh, but I don't know how to do that.
Right.
Right? Like, for example, if I went meta and I was building a course on how to create a course, this might be a moment, right? If they're creating this course and then there comes a moment where I'm like, well, you're going to talk about a soft upsell. They're like, hold on. Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to build an ascension model. And I'm like, well, don't worry. Once you build your first course, like, we're going to talk about that in ascension membership.
Like, I got
right?
you.
Like, I got you. And hey, with recession, like, that's the way the messaging needs to pivot. Like, your messaging, here's the thing, people are still going to buy. They might spend less, but they're still going to buy. And the messaging here is, instead of going from, I can help you grow your business, it's I can help you save your business. Instead of this like forward pushing thing, it's like a little more leaned back, a little more like, we're in this together, community oriented approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the community too, if as a course creator, you're able to create documentation, create tools that become essential to the function of their business, again, they'll stay for the community because that's going to be part of their routine, part of what they reference. It's huge. So we've talked a bit about sort of the mistakes. We talked about creating courses and ways we approach that. Let's talk about now one of the biggest issues is actually selling the thing. And this really is the crux of, it's where it all comes to a head, I think, is, this is all well and good. But unless it's creating the result that, is intended in terms of impact, right? So impact then is going to mean income as well. So how do you help your clients as it relates to the sales aspect of the course and ensuring that part of course creation is successful?
I mean, I'll tell you, I'm like the product girl. So I just do consulting on this, but I don't actually I don't build funnels. I don't write emails. I don't like do any of that stuff. I think it all starts with validating the offer.
Yeah.
Like, if you like, that's really where you start, is just like validating the offer, and validating the offer without a bunch of hoopla, like without a bunch of launch hoopla. It's like, can you make this offer work in the barest bones fashion? Because if you can make it there, like when you get to adding all the bells and whistles, holy cow, it's going to be amazing. So like, just start bare bones, just put your feelers out there and see if people want to buy it. And do they want to buy it like hotcakes, or do they want to buy it like, maybe that'd be cool, I think just it starts with that. It starts with validation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can sell it before it's built, essentially.
You can.
And you
You
can
can.
really validate and allow people to experience it before you go too deep into the woods, creating
Mm-hmm.
something that doesn't quite work for you. So that makes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense. I'm loving this conversation. I feel like we could definitely go in because this is both of our.
We can rabbit hole
Feel
so
like
far.
I'm trying to keep it focused. But yeah, I this is so powerful, and it just I'm just excited for the future, for those that are thought leaders and have a message to share. So, what do you feel like, in your opinion, is the future of this space? Maybe 10 years. Let's say 10 years.
10 years. Okay. 10 years. I think people are not going to be going to college much more. I think online education is what they will turn to instead of college. I think that more and more creators will come online, and that means that only the people who are really excellent are going to be able to hang, like, and really make a deep impact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's not to say that not everybody can do it, because I think that you can, but I think it's harder than people think it is. You know, like I work with a lot of people who have a business in some way, shape, or form, and they want to teach other people how to grow that business that they have. So, like, for example, plastic surgeon, cosmetic dentistry, um, like I could go, like, there's lots of different people who have a certain kind of business. They want to teach other people how to grow that business. And there becomes a moment in that transformation where they realize, oh my God, this is an entirely different business. Like, this isn't just like something I can add on. This isn't a vertical. This is like a completely different, think of it as a completely different entity with a
Mm.
completely different world, a completely different skill set. Like, even if you know digital marketing over here, doesn't mean your digital marketing skills are going to work over here.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people are going to try it out. We're going to have a lot of creators, and then some people are just going to realize it's not aligned. It's not for them. They don't want to put in the effort. They'd rather double down on what they're already doing or do something different.
Mm. Mm. That is definitely, I could see that too, for sure. I mean, when I think of the future as well, I just see I actually see more people teaching as well, and seeing
Mm-hmm.
a path to do that. And what you said, in a lot of different worlds, a lot of new spaces that are going to evolve. I think that
Yeah.
this isn't going anywhere. People are going to continue to publish their thoughts, publish their thinking and what's working for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it makes the world beautiful. Like, we're all teaching each other, right? We're all teaching each other.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, Jasmine, this has been incredible. I'm so excited we got to have this conversation today, and I'm curious where folks are. Sorry, I'm curious of your last parting words of advice that you want to share with folks, and then I was going to say, and where people can contact with you and connect with you.
Last parting words would be that kindness counts. You know,
Mm,
I heard a quote the other day that's like, if you assumed that 90% of the people you met were having the worst time of their lives, like in the toughest time of their lives, you'd be right. And I
wow.
think that nowadays it's like more prevalent than ever. And we as entrepreneurs get in our little entrepreneur bubble with our masterminds and our friends and our other people who are entrepreneurs. And so, like, I have a practice of taking myself to a McDonald's in person, like every once in a while, just to be like with normal people, because it makes you realize like the world is freaking suffering.
Mm,
And so, as much as we can like insulate ourselves so that we can be productive, I get it. But I also know that like kindness counts.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
just like always kindness. And where you can find me on the internets. If you just Google
The
me, you'll find me.
internets.
Uh,
Yes.
but JasmineJonte.com. I'm Jasmine Jonte on Instagram. Everything's under my personal name, but new branding to come soon. So stay
Ooh.
tuned if you want to see the new brand launch, which is happening late this year, early next.
Oh, congrats. Congrats.
Thank
I
you.
mean, that's a process too, isn't it?
I know. I got to figure out my own author's leverage, right?
I got your back. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you and just thankful. Thanks for sharing that too. That just that reminder about kindness and how essential that is today, because it does start here within yourself, and then you gotta also get out. So thanks for that reminder. And everything that Jasmine just shared, her contact information, we're going to make sure that we link it on this episode so you can connect with her and see what more she's up to. Check out her new brand. I can't wait to see that. That's going to be amazing. And yeah, thank you. This was great. And
thank you for having me.
Yes, and definitely for those tuning in, thanks for being here. I hope you learned something. You got some great value out of this conversation. It's one of my favorite topics, and just excited to have shared it with you today, Jasmine, and want to acknowledge you for your work as a former teacher and taking that energy and passion and love into what you're doing with this to serve other people. So thank you, and thank you to those who tuned in.